Welcome to Life Sirens, Behind and on the Scene, a podcast by first responders. We're your hosts, Sophie,
Jamie,
and Aubrey.
The content provided in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policies or positions of any medical institutions, emergency medical services, or healthcare organizations. Patient privacy is a top priority, and all discussions involving real-world emergency situations are de-identified and altered to ensure confidentiality. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional or your local EMS protocols before making any decisions regarding patient care or medical practices. Listener discretion is advised, as some topics may include discussions of real-world emergency situations.
Doing the right thing. It sounds simple, almost obvious, but in emergency medicine, the right thing is not always the easy thing. It can require courage, accountability, clinical excellence, and sometimes the willingness to speak up when it would be more comfortable to stay silent. Today's episode is another collaboration with EMS1's Inside EMS.
Hi, I'm Chris Saballero, host of the Inside EMS podcast. EMS is demanding, unpredictable, and still one of the most meaningful careers out there. If you care about this work and where the profession is headed, your perspective matters. The EMS Trend Survey gives providers a platform to share honest takes on the job, its challenges, and what it needs to change. Take a few minutes and help shape the future of EMS. Visit EMS1.com/survey to share your experience.
We take a look at another article that challenges us to rethink culture, not as a slogan on the wall, but as an operating system that drives every decision we make on scene, in leadership and within our organizations. For those unfamiliar, Pro EMS is a high-performing 911 ambulance service based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It's recognized nationally for progressive leadership, strong clinical standards, and a culture rooted in accountability. While most of our listeners may never work within that system, the principles discussed today apply to every agency, urban or rural, private or third service, flight or ground. This episode is not about putting one organization on a pedestal. It's about asking the harder question. What would happen if doing the right thing truly became the default setting in EMS? Let's get into it.
We'll discuss how this philosophy influences leadership, fosters a culture of candor, and drives innovation within the organization.
And we'll examine how these practices align with evidence-based medical standards and improve patient outcomes.
So in this article, Rob Lawrence, he describes Pro EMS's culture as one where doing the right thing isn't just encouraged, it's expected, even when it's uncomfortable or unpopular.
And this principle serves as a guiding compass, ensuring that decisions are made with integrity and accountability at every level.
It's about creating an environment where ethical decision-making is the norm, not the exception.
And I think we hear this all the time, right? We hear just culture, we hear a lot of these things, I guess, championed, but they're not, we don't take it full, I guess we don't take it all the way, right? We just kind of say that is how we are here, and we don't always do that.
Yeah, I don't know that people necessarily have a practical outline of how to realistically embed that in an agency.
Unbreakable bonds.
Yes, absolutely. Because if you talk about just culture, and then you're like, great, so someone comes to you and is like, I did this thing, and it's wildly reckless and inappropriate, and it's out of protocol, and it's all the things. Leadership's knee-jerk response is going to be punishment now.
Yes.
Right, because it's so crazy, because nobody actually took the time to build a system of just culture. How do we handle things?
Yes, just culture is truly, it has to become who you are. Mm-hmm. Everybody at the company, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Pro EMS embraces candor, encouraging open dialogue, and expecting team members to voice dissenting opinions.
This duty to dissent ensures that ideas are rigorously tested and that the best solutions emerge from collaborative discussions.
It's a culture where feedback, it's not just welcome, it's a critical component of organizational growth. And research indicates that organizations promoting psychological safety, which we've talked about on the show before, where teams feel comfortable speaking up, essentially, and where they feel safe to express their feelings and their ideas, they experience better patient safety outcomes. And I recently spoke at a conference, and we can link the video to this, but there's a TED Talk where this psychologist, she is new to the field, and she wants to identify that better teams, her, I guess, hypothesis is that better teams, people who communicate better, will have fewer mistakes. They will experience less, and they studied hospitals, so less med dose errors, less things that could harm a patient, essentially. But she actually found the opposite, and I wish I had her name off the top of my head, but again, we'll link it in the show notes. But she found the opposite, and that was because the better teams who communicated better and were honest about things reported more mistakes because they felt psychologically safe. They were close enough to their teammates to tell the truth and say, uh-oh, I messed up, what do we do? And the teams with less reported instances didn't make less mistakes, they just talked about them less.
Yeah.
So it's just some food for thought.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we all have experienced that at a service in one way or another, where somebody will be complaining about something or noticing something, like maybe a broken piece of equipment or whatever, and you're like, oh, did you tell so-and-so? And they're like, no, because it doesn't matter. You're like, oh, what do you mean it doesn't matter?
But
They're like, oh, it literally doesn't matter if I tell them or not. They don't care.
That's true. It can happen.
And that happens with a lot of leadership, where people see problem in policy, or they see problem in the approach to a certain topic, or whether it's clinical or social, and someone will have a fantastic idea, and you're like, why have you not brought that to leadership? And you're like, because they don't care.
They do not care about me.
And that happens everywhere and so frequently. But think about the amount of value that each of your team members could add if they did.
Yeah.
Like if they would receive that in a positive manner. And maybe it's a
100%.
terrible idea, but maybe it's actually a good one.
Yeah, but being heard, whether it's a terrible idea or the best idea ever, being heard is part of that psychological safety, right? They were willing to listen to me, and they were also willing to explain to me why we weren't able to do that.
Yeah, the transparency and a lot of times why we can't.
Yes.
One, it could help you find some solutions where you actually can.
Yeah.
But being able to explain, like, hey, this is why we can't do that right now, a lot of times that's all people need. There does not need to be secrecy around why you can't do something. Just be like, it's a budgetary constraint. Like, we're in the middle of the fiscal year. We don't have no dollars. Let's talk about it next fiscal budget.
Create a proposal, and we'll talk about it as soon as this becomes something
For
that
sure.
we can conceptualize.
Yeah, but if they just look at you and say no,
Yeah.
You're like,
Why? Because
you
we
will
can't,
not
sorry.
bring. You will never bring them another idea.
Correct.
No.
Mhm.
And then they'll tell their friends.
Yeah,
Don't tell them because they're not going to care.
they're not going to care. Absolutely, and it can really get out of hand
Yes.
if you
And
handle things that way.
trust is the bottom line, right?
So Pro EMS's leadership team has hands-on experience in the field, having worked on ambulances and understanding the challenges firsthand.
This shared experience builds trust and credibility, ensuring that decisions are grounded in real-world understanding.
And it also means that leadership is more attuned to the needs of frontline staff, fostering a supportive and empathetic work environment. And I think we see this a lot. Field crews say, well, admin, they don't get it. They're so far removed from what we do. And then admin's like, well, they're just insubordinate. They don't want to do what I tell them to do. And it's just like this battle. And Rob, I've had some great conversations with him. And if you listen to his podcast, you may hear him say, we agree on 99% of things. And we do. We agree on most things if we actually talk to each other. We just focus on or even 90%. You can go with 90%, right? We just focus on the 10% of the things that we don't agree on. And I think if you dove into those 10% even in a constructive way, you would find out that we can probably get pretty close on those too.
Yeah, a lot of times you actually, in the basic principles, you do agree. Maybe your approach to how you're getting there is what you disagree on.
Exactly.
Or the timeline in which you can get there.
Yes.
But most of the time, we're all pretty aligned.
Yeah, especially in this field. It takes a lot of people with similar personalities. There's no doubt about that. But leaders with clinical experience are better positioned to make informed decisions that directly impact patient care and our staff well-being. So just keep that in mind. Like, if you need a committee or a board or like to poll your teams, like send a poll out and ask them. Like, just being heard and understanding that someone actually is invested in seeing what I have to say is really important. And then also literally seeing where the struggle is. I'm sure we've all experienced somebody has made a clinical decision or we've changed equipment and nobody really consulted anyone in the field, and it literally flopped miserably, like, because it just wasn't something that was practical for our field crews, and the equipment was, you know, ineffective or low quality or whatever. So just having everybody on board to make those decisions, like, clinical crew members are the ones who truly are best suited for that. You're the one who's best logistically suited to solve the problem, but they're the ones who are going to have like a realistic approach to like what actually is functional. And if you, for example, say you get really crappy IV catheters and they're just every time that you pull one out of the container or like the wrapper, it's sheared or like it's something's missing or the IV kits are missing something, you're actually going to lose money, right? So like having equipment that works, having equipment that your teams like to use, it's going to protect patient care, it's going to protect your budget, and it's going to protect the culture.
And if you have a culture where your teams trust you and they trust that they can speak candidly, ask them what loophole they have found. Because every single EMS provider is very good at two things: being distracted easily and finding a loophole. And we will find it if it's there. If you have given me a piece of equipment that is not functional or doesn't work, ask me what I'm snatching from the ER. To fix that problem. Or if there's even like a protocol that doesn't make any sense, ask how many people call for orders for that particular thing. Like, EMS is going to find a loophole. So if you ask your crews how they've fixed that problem already without bringing it to you, then follow that avenue.
Yes.
Because they found something that worked. And so kind of go down that path, and maybe you can replicate that or buy that piece of equipment or whatever it is. But it'll give you a really good place to jump off if you are kind of lost on where to go from there.
Yes.
Ask them what they figured out to do.
Absolutely. If there's anything that EMS personnel have, it is opinions and it is loopholes.
Yeah, and if you're ready to hear them, we can probably solve a lot of problems, right?
Absolutely.
Speaking of problem solving, let's talk about innovation that's rooted in necessity.
Yeah, so Pro EMS, they did not wait for external solutions. They innovated internally. When existing programs didn't meet their standards, they created their own, like Prodigy EMS.
This proactive approach ensures that tools and systems are tailored to their specific needs, enhancing efficiency and effectiveness.
It's a model of building solutions for internal use first, then scaling them outward. It's a testament to their commitment to continuous improvement, and we talk about this on the show all the time. Every single agency, the struggles they face, the demographic they serve, the tax bracket that exists in their service area. There are so many things. The amount of hospitals, the amount of interstates that run through your service area. Literally, there's a million different factors that are going to make your EMS service uniquely yours. So solutions do need to be solved to fit your unique circumstances. There's very few circumstances in EMS, aside from like literal evidence-based medicine, where a blanket like national thing could happen when it comes to logistics and like how we operate. It's just hard to do. This infrastructure just doesn't exist. So organizations that develop internal training programs, they often see those improved competencies and confidence among staff, because not only do they trust the person who's teaching them in most scenarios because they know them and they may have worked with them, but they also have typically the access to the training facilities and the resources at any time.
Yeah.
Right? A really good example of this, and I recently visited them, was Metro EMS in Little Rock, Arkansas, their main station, absolutely incredible. Like, the resource, first of all, they have a library. They have a clinical library.
Ooh.
Okay. They have, we talked about, they have multiple spaces for training, whether that's lecture style or sim lab or wet lab. They also have like a little market downstairs where it's basically a gas station in their, inside of their station. They run everything really almost like formally, but they have the access to the things because they run the show so well that other agencies might not have. They have a whole fleet that just like restocks their ambulances. Crews never have to restock their own ambulance. They use operative IQ, so that like there are people who are just hired to do that. It just runs really well, right? And they just created a system that worked so well for them, and they have all their training internally. They're able to access that stuff anytime. They even have like a fitness center. Like, it's absolutely the most incredible thing ever. And they just said, you know what? We're not going to keep waiting around for someone to create something for us. We have to do it for ourselves. And it is a beautiful example of that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's
I'm
really
so-
cool.
I kept telling Brandon, who was giving me the tour, how proud I was. I was like, I don't even know any of y'all, and I am so proud. Like, it's like, I was like, I had no idea something like this existed, and he was like, this is how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I was like, Brandon, I agree.
This is
So,
amazing.
just do it yourself. It might be hard, it might take a long time, but you will get there.
Yeah.
You'll get there.
So along the same lines as innovation, we can also use culture as a strategic asset. And so Rob emphasizes that culture isn't a soft concept. It is a strategic asset. Pro EMS, culture drives performance, resilience, and adaptability.
By embedding values like trust, humility, and accountability into their operating system, they've created a robust framework that supports both staff and patients.
It's a powerful reminder that the right culture can be a catalyst for sustained success in EMS organizations. And strong organizational culture is linked to higher employee satisfaction and better patient outcomes. This is just the facts. So invest in your culture.
Pro EMS's approach offers valuable insights for EMS leaders aiming to cultivate a culture of integrity and innovation.
By turning doing the right thing.
This has been
into an
Life in
operational
Sirens,
standard,
produced
instead
by
of
three
benchmarking
nerds
for excellence.
trying to bring you content that you might
We
actually
encourage
care
our
about.
listeners to reflect on how these principles can be applied within their own If this
organizations.
episode brought you value,
Thank you
take
for
a
joining
moment
us on
to
this
rate and review the
collaborative
show.
episode with
It helps more
EMS1's
providers
Inside
find us.
EMS. Stay
Follow
safe,
Life in
stay
Sirens,
inspired, and
join our
keep
mailing
doing the
list
right
for
thing.
exclusive content, and visit lifeandsirenspodcast.com for resources and downloadables built for the modern provider. And if this conversation made you think, send it to your partner, your preceptee, or someone on your crew, because better providers build better systems.